My name is the Otter, and this is the EXT Era. It's a 36mm stanchion Italian fork. So why should you watch this super expensive fork video? Because I learned some incredible lessons as far as diagnosing suspension. So let's jump into the video. So this EXT Era is a version 1. We can identify it by not having a pinch bolt assembly on the lower legs, but it was fully updated to version 2.1 air spring. After speaking with the guys over at EXT, basically, the damper hasn't changed too much since version 1 because basically it's an incredible damper. So let's rewind to about July, which is 8 months ago, and it was nice and sunny.
I'm going to say this is a marketing fail because it looks like there's a lyric hanging out of the front of my bike. Never want to judge something how it looks, but I mean, honestly, the domain is like more impressive than this thing. It just looks kind of flimsy on an e-bike, but when it comes to the coil, it's actually the reverse. It's that massive stanchion here. So we're at Ducey Bike Park. My friend sent me here. I've never been here, but supposedly it's like a little bike park, and the weather is unbelievable. Scrub.
First impression of the EXT Era, back on the EXT Era, it feels very, very similar to the Öhlins fork. Nothing like Fox and RockShox. It never provides a harsh ramp up, bottom out feel. It has a nice linear feel and blows off the compression on bigger hits.
So I suck, so I need to ride the same trail over and over. So there was a little bit of a steering problem. So cranking the low speed off. When I was on the Kenevo with this fork, I just absolutely could not get it right. Okay, steering. No. Fork is going into the for sale pile.
First day on this fork, exactly like the previous two forks. It has some kind of weird understeer oversteer fear, and I'm unable to diagnose what the problem is. All I know that I do not have these kind of problems on a 38mm stanchion fork.
Okay, there's so much control out of that fork. Super predictable. And so moving into the blue trails, this fork has this horrible understeer problem.
The damping characteristic out of the EXT fork is literally better than a Grip X2 or anything from Fox and RockShox currently, and this fork is 5 years old. But I'm suffering from a weird handling issue, so this is when I set out on a mission to basically diagnose this at any cost, and no matter how long it took. So it's July, and let's jump into August. Budget and reliability aside, guys, you should really be debating if you're going to ride Öhlins or EXT. So the EXT Era, which we're focusing on this video, is basically, think about it like a car. It's not a particularly friendly car to drive, where the Öhlins 38 is a little bit more friendly to drive. So if you're a real driver or mountain biker, you know you want to conquer the harder thing. So let's get on that EXT Era. First run on the EXT Era at the bike park, it was definitely the funnest, playfulest feeling fork so far, but a lack of a warm-up ended in a pretty nasty stack right here. Dragging my head on the ground, should probably wear a full face, but let's carry on because I am on a mission to diagnose what's going on in that fork.
So this is where the Öhlins really stood out last time.
So straight plowing in the chunk on the EXT fork, those smaller stanchions are definitely not as confident as the Öhlins 38 and the Fox 38 I've been on previously in the day.
Oh my God, that was a pedal strike.
Continuing on the mission to absolutely never give up on this fork, I started playing around with the bike. I decided to pull the battery out of my e-bike and see what it felt like, what's the difference descending. So I can tell you, pulling 3 kilograms or 9 pounds out of your bike completely transforms the way this thing rides. So for the rest of the day, I was on the EXT Era because it's the only fork I can't conquer. Moving the rebound to the fully fast setting with the compression wide open, it was definitely a better feel, but I did diagnose basically the rebound valving is too stiff on this fork. So on to September with another mission. So this is the whole point of this video, to properly diagnose suspension issues with efficiency. When you push this fork down in the parking lot or the garage, it feels like the rebound's super fast, but when you ride it, it's not super fast. So most of your issues with suspension are rebound related. So I'm going to jump inside of this fork, take it apart without the instructions to see what's inside of it, and pull a couple shims off the mid valve or the rebound piston. Just so you guys know, I have rarely any external support, so if I say something wrong or do something wrong, friendly, correct me in the comments. So I'm going off this guy's comment that we have too slow of a rebound tune. These are the tiny shims or washers that create the rebound. The EXT Era does not have a mid-valve compression, so all the damping is created on the rebound down here, and I do believe it's a little bit too stiff. So once you get inside of the damper, standard shaft clamping procedures, and I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it's actually very simple inside. The rebound architecture is 21, 17, 20. And then a tapered pyramid stack, so it's a dual stage shim stack, and I'm just kind of guessing what to do here. So I pulled 2 rebound shims and made this into a tapered stack. It's a very controversial subject as far as dual stage shim stacks, and we're gonna have to see how it rides with a single stage shim stack. The compression assembly in the EXT Era looks almost identical to the Grip X2. So understand the EXT fork is 5 years old, so you're paying for some really sophisticated technology with that hefty price tag. This is the compression piston out of the EXT fork. If you put it side by side with a Grip X2 or Grip X, these two are very similar in size and architecture. Who's copying who? You can leave that up to yourself. Let's take a look at the compression valving of the EXTs. We have 22, 20, 16, 14, 12. So understand this was like a couple months ago and I am learning this stuff. So right away, the first shim on this is a 0.20 thick, and that's too thick. With my additional information now, I would just put a 0.10 face shim on the compression and it would probably be the proper fast enough rebound, but this was months ago and I am learning this stuff as I go. I really hate to badmouth brands, but I gotta be transparent. So I ordered this Whistler oil on Amazon because it was exceptionally cheap. I did find on the internet that the EXT fork takes 2.5 weight oil, so I put this oil inside of the fork. But unfortunately, I've put this oil in quite a few different pieces of suspension and not had the best results. So in my humble opinion, it's best to stick with like Motorex or some kind of overly engineered German brand. So I did successfully take it apart and put it back together with no instructions and no specialty tools, but I do not recommend that. The air spring is super unique. So there's a heavy spring system on the bottom of the air spring. So I asked EXT USA what this is all about, and they let me know it's somewhat of a tuned mass damper, acts in the same fashion as Buttercups without the marketing, and it's kind of similar to the DVO OTT system. It takes up the first tiny little bit of travel, but EXT has chosen to use a negative air spring as well. So this is a very simple but sophisticated air spring. So here's the damper assembly, and it's got that beautiful EXT color. So basically I got everything completely right. And then I was tightening up the foot nut on the lower leg, which is this 19 millimeter, and I was a little bit tired and frustrated. And I over tightened it. And this is the piece that hangs off the damper shaft. And I broke the tip off. So EXT does not want you working on this stuff because it is difficult to work on, or they want to make money off you. Take your choice on which one it is. So first ride on this fork after retuning it, and it has the same kind of inconsistent feel and not what I'm looking for. Pretty disappointing so far. So basically I had to take another couple weeks break from this because I'm so frustrated. The rebound felt right, but unfortunately now the compression feels a little bit too stiff. So here's the compression shim stack. And I did put some unauthorized oil inside of here, so it is turning into a bit of a mess. Bo from EXT USA, this guy right here, is a friend of a friend, and he happened to be in town to go to a wedding, so I was like, told my friend, hey, let me hang out with Bo. So Bo was like, oh god, I don't want to deal with work right now. So he works at EXT USA, or I'm not sure his exact role there. So the first thing he tells me is he's trying to diagnose what's wrong with the Era. And I'm like, I'm not 100% certain. So he starts going through a diagnostic chart list. What is your plus and plus plus pressure? So my plus plus, I'm like 80, regular pressure 100. And he goes, there's your problem right there. The ramp up chamber, the plus plus, needs to be 10 psi higher than the regular chamber to support it. So that was the inconsistent feel throughout this entire episode. If I had properly read the instruction manual that I don't have because it's a used fork, I would have been able to basically more or less diagnose it. I did settle in on a pretty solid air pressure, 100 regular. No, yeah, 100 and then 110 in the regular. So here's the problem. After basically riding for like 30 miles, I'm only using that much travel. So we got to figure out how to make the air spring softer while maintaining in the rule boundary of the plus and the plus plus. So compression is wide open. So basically I need to pull more shims off the compression, but that's the hard way to do it. We're going to figure out the easy way. There it is. Heading into the test track with my newly acquired knowledge, the EXT Era is a really, really impressive fork. It has 0 steering issues as long as you sort out the air spring. The air spring, you have to follow the rules or this is an absolutely trash fork. So I have the compression wide open and the rebound in the full fast setting, so it does need another retune because I can't use all the travel. But if this video gets some interest, I'll send it into EXT and have them retune it. Link to the first comment is a EXT Era setup guide. It costs $9.99. It's all the information I've poured into years of suspension stuff. Or you can click the playlist on your screen for tons of free videos on how to set stuff up.